Hey there, I'm your host Zoe, and in today's video, I will show you how to create an inventory system. So let me demonstrate. Behind me, we can see 3 containers. If I go ahead and open one of these up, like our chest, inside we can see a few items. If I go ahead and right click on the containers items, I get the use, take, split, and inspect options. Likewise, on my own inventory, if I right click on this item, I'll have the same options, but take becomes store. And if I'm not in any inventory at all, and I open my inventory, that take and store becomes a drop, and we can drop 1 item if we wish to do so. We can also pick it back up, and we can pick up a few more items. And let's pick up 2 cubes. We can then go ahead and open our second container. We can also drag these items if we want. We can store, maybe you want to store 1, this will become 6. You can easily set up the max stack size. For me, I set this max to be 10, so they'll only stack to 10, and then create a new slot if a new slot is available. Let's store everything, becomes 5, and let's store the last one. We can also filter them. So this is a food category, and this one is a miscellaneous category. So perhaps I want to filter all the food. It'll take into account those 2 blocks, completely ignore them, and let us know how many slots we have left. And if nothing is selected, everything will show up. And if something is selected that's not on the screen, well then it won't show up because we don't have it. Let's exit out of this. We can also drop items by dragging them out. So let's pick a few up and drop them like so. And let's also go ahead and demonstrate the inspect option, which tells us the name, quantity, rarity, category, and the description. Let's split it. We have 3, now we have 2 and 1. So the larger amount, if you have an uneven number, it'll stay in the original slot. Put them back in, and perhaps I want to use 1. Well, in that case, we simply get a print string at the top left side of our screen. And that is pretty much it. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get on with the video. So the first thing that we want to do, let's open up our content drawer, and here are a few things that you'll need. You'll need a few sound effects for your containers, inventory, and items. For the containers and inventory, I'm simply using a open sound and a close sound. And for the items, I'm using things such as drop, move, pick up, and use sounds. And the same thing goes for the mushroom that you've seen at the very beginning. Next, we'll need few icons, and I'm using the Craft Resources Icons pack that you can get on Epic Games. I believe it's completely free to download. And lastly, you need few models for your containers. And I believe that's pretty much it. So let's begin by creating our first folder, which we'll call our inventory_system. Inside of which we'll create a second folder titled item data. Now here we'll create everything related to our items. So let's begin by creating a structure called S_item data. And in this structure, we want to include things such as the name, description, icon, and everything you really want your item to have. So let's create a few windows. And let's begin by giving it a name. Then perhaps we want to have a description. I also want an image. We want to know the class. So the class is the 3D model represented in our world. We want an effect. So perhaps your mushroom heals you 20 health or something like that. We want sound effects. We also want to perhaps know the rarity of the item. Let's have the category. And let's also have the max stack size, which I'll call slot quantity. I just prefer that name over max stack size. Right, so our name and our description will be a text. Then for our image, this will be a texture, if I can spell this, texture 2D, object reference. For our class, we want to create our new folder. So go a folder back and create a new folder called items. And essentially our item class will create an actor, and this will be the parent of all of our items in the game. Let's call it BP_item_base. We don't have to do anything yet. We just needed to put this as our type. So let's type in BP item. There we are. And you want to select the class reference. And the same goes for our effect. So let's create a folder for our effects, item effects. And inside we'll go creating a blueprint class actor BP_item effect base. So this will be our parent for all the child classes of our effects. And let's go ahead, search for our BP item effect and class reference once again. For our sound effects, we'll create in our item data folder, we will create a structure. S_item SFX sound effects, in which we want to add 4 sounds like you saw before, the pickup, drop, and all that. And the type will be a sound base. So the first sound we can have is a pickup sound. Then we'll have our drop sound, our move, and our use. We're done with this, can save it, don't have to open that up again. And in here, we can search for S_item sound effects. For the rarity and category, we will create 2 enumerations. So let's right click, go to blueprint, search enumeration, E_item rarity. And let's go ahead, create the second one, E_item category. And let's put them in here quickly, E_item rarity, E_item category. So in our rarity enumeration, let's add few options. We'll have things such as common, uncommon, what's there? We have epic, rare, then epic, legendary, and we'll have mystical. There we are. Save that. And in our category, this depends on what categories you want to have in your inventory system. So let's create 5, and we'll have, like we had in the intro, equipment. What else did I have? I had food, potions. I remember the last was a miscellaneous. And the 4th one, let's say books. So whatever you want added here. And the last is slot quantity, which simply will be an integer. Save that and exit. Next, we will go into our item data folder and we will create another structure called S_item slot. Inside of which we will have 2 variables, one for the item ID, which will be a name, and a second one for the item quantity, which will be an integer. Save that and exit. Next, we'll go ahead and add a few more things to our item parent. So go to items, open up BP_item base. And inside of here, we'll add the fundamentals. So let's add a static mesh. And inside of this, we'll add a collision, sphere collision, add a name, collision there. And for the sphere collision, let's go to the viewport. We can make it a size of 200. let's select our static mesh and give it something. Doesn't really matter since this is the parent class. I'll give it a cube and maybe bring it down a little bit. Maybe 3 points and bring this up by 3 points. And maybe one more and like this. So it's somewhere in the middle. Doesn't have to be exact. We can play with this a little bit later. But for the collision, what we want to do is set up a custom trace channel. So if we type in collision, we want to set this to be custom. And let's minimize this, go to settings, project settings. And if you search for trace, you'll get something here, new trace channel. And let's call this interactive. This will be for our inventory system, and we can make it ignore as the default response. Accept. And let's go back into our item. And now if we compile this, it'll refresh and we have the interactive trace channel. So on our collision, we want this to block. And for our static mesh, we also want this to be custom, but we won't change anything here. One more thing, for our item, we want to simulate physics, and then the linear damping and angular damping values, you can play around with these. I found a value of 2 to be good. And this basically reacts to when your player interacts with the item, or collides rather, how much will the item move or jump. So that's that. Let's close this down. Next, we'll go ahead and open up the item data folder. And inside, we will create a data table. So go to miscellaneous, hit data table, and we want the s_item data. Press OK, and let's call this DT for data table item data. So here is the area where you would essentially build your items in the game. Oof, that's a little bit big. And drag this out a little bit, give yourself some room, and maybe I give myself too much room. That's about okay. So the role name will be the unique handle for your item. So this can be a combination of numbers and letters. When I'm creating an item, I typically create something like 0001A1 would be like the first item, and play around with it, create something unique that's easily accessible for you. Then for our first item, we'll have a test item, is what I'll call it. And the description will be for testing. Then for the image, we'll take care of that in a second. Let's create our second item. I'll only create 2 for the purpose of the video. And then description, or name rather, will be mushroom. And for the description, we'll need restores 20 health points. That's fine. Now let's take care of the image. So we want to open up our content drawer and go into wherever your icons are. My ones are here. And let's find a mushroom. So the one I was using is right here. Drag that in here. And for my test item, what I'll use is a block or a rock. Where are you? This one. And let's go ahead, fill out some more information. For the class, we don't have one yet. We just have the parent. So since this is the test item, we can give it the item base and the item base effect. For sound effects, we can give it the generic. So if I look up pick up sound, the generic one. For drop, we'll do that the same. For move, we'll also add that there, and use. Perfect. And lastly, what is the rarity? Mystical. Category will be miscellaneous. And the maximum slot quantity, I'll set this to 10. For our mushroom, we want to create a class and a effect. So go into your content drawer and go into your inventory system, items, right click on your parent and do create child blueprint class. And we'll call this mushroom. So we can go inside our mushroom and we'll change this to be our mushroom. And then we can play around with the value and the size. Now this is kind of big. So what I can do is I can go to the parent class, inside which we can change this to be a little bit smaller. So let's do like 0.4 and we can paste that along. So that looks a lot better. Save that. And then our mushroom will be adjusted. Let's bring it a little bit down, or rather bring this a little bit up, and I'm happy with this. Compile that real quick and let's put it into our world to see how it would look like. And if I hit play, this is how it looks, and that's perfect for me. So next, we'll go ahead and create something similar for our item effect. So open up the content drawer, go to your item effects, right click on the base, create child blueprint class, and we'll call it something like restore health. There we are. Save it, go into the base, not the child, the base. And from event begin play, you want to do a print string. And from here, we'll drag promote to variable, and let's call it the item effect. Let's make this variable instance editable and exposed on spawn, allowing us to edit it in our children. Now, if we go ahead, open this up, let's say restored 20 health and hit enter. Compile and save. And that's pretty much it for the introduction. In the next video, we'll focus on creating a system for the interaction. So we'll be able to interact with our mushrooms. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. And as always, happy developing.